The Bitcoin price action has been, well, kind of neutral. I mean, we haven't really changed price much at all in several months. Recently for Bitcoin, we got a failed breakout, which we identified here on this channel early on. And now we have seen some significant downside in the short term, which puts Bitcoin in a very interesting position. Just above the 600-day SMA, just below the 200-day SMA, right up along our upward sloping trend line for the macro trend here. So that kind of begs the question, what is going to happen next for Bitcoin? I went to the weekly chart for Bitcoin and opened up the weekly RSI to give me a better idea of where we are within this cycle by analyzing the RSI throughout previous cycles. I posted this on Twitter. So we're going to talk about this weekly RSI analysis and more in today's video. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Kevin Svenson, and today we're going to be discussing the RSI on the weekly time scale, trying to figure out where we are in this cycle. Guys, definitely smash the like button and subscribe to this channel if you're new. Now let's get started. So looking at Bitcoin on the weekly time scale, what I have shown on the chart is the price action since the beginning of 2012 or the end of 2011 all the way until where we are today. This is the long-term chart showing each halving period and what takes place within each halving cycle. All right, so let's begin the analysis starting with the first halving cycle. Now, the 2012 halving resulted in a major uptrend. What took place was a major move up to a high point, which came alongside this RSI peaking at a 90. Sorry, actually above a 90. We look to the right, about a 90. And one of the things I was saying as an observation, the RSI peaks at 90 and then bottoms at a 30. Okay, so we go back here. We see that we peaked at 90, bottom at 30. Same thing happens in 2018, peak 90, bottom 30. Same thing is happening right now in this cycle, peak at 90. That's the current cycle. But let's go back. RSI peaks at 90. We enter a downward sloping channel for the RSI. We come all the way down to that 30 level. When we hit 30, that's the bottom for the price action. So we come down the channel, hit 30, and exit into the next halving, and we go to the moon. Okay, let's look at 2018 now. What happens here in 2018? Well, something pretty similar. Major uptrend until we hit a peak price, hit 90 on the RSI, leads to a downward sloping channel for the RSI, come all the way down to 30, and then exit. Okay, pretty straightforward, pretty similar to the first cycle. And now for Bitcoin, we're sitting in a pretty interesting spot because the price ran up, we hit 90. Now, when we hit 90, we actually were touching 42,000, which was not the actual top. But we did fulfill the RSI requirement of 90. And in a sense, it was a blow off top, that 42 level. And let me just show you something. A lot of people think that Bitcoin hasn't seen a blow off top, which you can make the argument that it hasn't, right? And I would actually probably agree with the argument that we didn't get a blow off top. I would actually probably agree with that. But I want to show you guys something. When you look at the first run up for Bitcoin here, we kind of did go parabolic. Okay, this was a parabola and we broke. And this is where the RSI topped at a 90 on the weekly, right here. And what I also find interesting is if you go to Plan B's relative profit-taking Z-score chart, we had a major spike in the relative profit-taking at 42. At that level, at this level, was the highest area of profit-taking. Right? Which is more comparable to like the 2018 top or the 2013 top, right? I find that to be quite fascinating. So in a way, you could make the argument that we did have some kind of blow off top with a blow off in with a spike in profit taking, as we saw in all these previous bull markets. So the indicators, so we have requirements fulfilled for the indicators, for the profit taking. That was the maximum activity in this market, guys. was actually 42. Maximum activity was actually right there, which is kind of a good explanation as to why we sort of failed to get another blow off top, is because we kind of had a max out and a lot of different things take place right here. And that's pretty evident. But now the point is, what is going to happen next for Bitcoin? Well, the RSI is pretty much in the same position it was the past couple halving cycles. And, we haven't touched a 30 yet. We touched 30 in all previous bear markets. So this is a pretty good argument as to why we do have some more room to move down before exiting into the next bull, right? You want to hit that 30, exit. Hit that 30, exit. Here, we haven't hit the 30. If we do, then it's more likely that we would exit up with some good momentum. Now, the two main arguments I hear when I talk about this kind of stuff is, one, people say, well, we didn't have a parabola top, so we're likely not going to have a bear market, which I find to be kind of a silly statement. I think it's a bit silly to say that because we didn't have a full parabola that we can't go down. I mean, maybe we won't go down as much, but I think there's definitely downside potential. You could see a bottom come in like that. Why not, right? I don't see why not. It really all depends on the stock market, actually. And then the other argument is that people will say something like, well, Bitcoin has to do either what it did in 2018 or it has to do what it did in 2013. It has to do the same thing. And I don't agree with that either. I think it's just going to be different. But I do think that, a traditional bear market is likely at some point before the next halving. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an 85% correction, because 85% from the top, I mean, that's kind of crazy to expect. Basically like 10K. No, yeah, see, I don't agree with this at all. This bear market likely will probably, 20K at the most, I think, from the top, which is like 70%, 25K be like 63%. Something along those lines is more likely, not this. I think that's just too much. But a little bit of downside, a little bit of a cool off in the market before the next bull run, makes sense to me, because it's like, okay, when else are we going to cool off, right? It's unlikely that we're just going to moon and then moon again, just like moon into the near the next halving and then just moon again and have this like super cycle, no downside kind of thing. I'm not so sure about that, right? I think that the RSI is kind of telling us a different story. We might see a little bit of capitulation, a little bit of lower lows, probably nothing too crazy before we then rip into the next halving, right? And usually bear markets end with lower lows. So far for Bitcoin, we only have higher lows. So it's more likely that we probably come down and bottom out here and then come up into the next halving. Right? I think that a cool off period, as I was saying in this tweet, expecting a cool down period before the next halving is reasonable, right? A lot of people out there will try to make you think that it's like unreasonable to expect downside at all, like an up only mentality, but I think it's actually reasonable in terms of timing. These, looking at the amount of days from, having to RSI hitting 30, 777, having 885 days till the RSI hitting 30 on the weekly. Third halving, we're kind of coming up on that sort of 800-day period soon, right? 800 to 900 days would be somewhere over here. So maybe we kind of play something like that out, and then we exit up into the next major uptrend. And I think that it is reasonable to expect a cool down period before the next bull market, right? Which means, maybe going into the 20s sideways before coming up. In terms of Bitcoin, that type of volatility is not uncommon, and it's not really that crazy to expect. Anyway, that is pretty much the analysis that I wanted to provide. Just wanted to give a little bit more evidence to suggest why, it is good to be playing defense right now. Why we shouldn't just have, be blindly hoping for the moon necessarily. It also depends on the stock market largely, I would say. What's going to happen next, I think, is a lot to do with the stock market. But that is pretty much my analysis, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.